Birds of Prey is a better movie than Joker. Just kidding, that's not controversial. Everyone knows Birds of Prey is a better movie than Joker. But today we're not talking about Birds of Prey. I just really like to say things that upset straight men on the internet, much like the subject of this video. Harley Quinn, the coolest and most interesting DC character. Wait, maybe that was the controversial opinion. Well, now that the incels have stopped watching, I'm gonna tell all you cool cats and kittens about an actually perfect adaptation of the Harley Quinn universe. Greetings, my good bitches. The name's Francis, Coke Francis. I'm a filmmaker, stand-up comedian, drag artist, and I'm here because I want to be the world's greatest supervillain, but lack the money and resources to do so. Bezos. In all fairness to Joker, Joaquin Phoenix is an absolute beast, and the movie itself is aesthetically beautiful, but I found the storyline concerning. Like many other critics at the time, I too was very worried that this movie would inspire lonely, single, straight white men to become stand-up comedians. Waka waka! The Joker is by far the best Batman villain and arguably the best villain of all time. And he's rightfully received his share of representation over the last several decades. But he's also an abusive dickhead. Hey, you can love the art, hate the artist, right? It's 2021 and his now ex Harley Quinn is taking over. It's got all the fanboys nice and pissed off, and I couldn't be more delighted.
It's just another heavy-handed female empowerment story where the true villain is the quote-unquote patriarchy. I'm sorry, but cucked isn't a great color on the greatest villain of all time.
Over the past few years, Harley's evolution has been one of the most notable of any pop culture icon, and I love where it's taken her. She's no longer a sidekick. Margot Robbie was the only one to make it out of Suicide Squad alive. She got her own movie, and now she has a bangin' series on HBO Max. And I don't know why the fuck more people aren't talking about it. My partner and I actually discovered this show by accident. We were looking for a new DC cartoon to watch on HBO Max and put this one on, stupidly assuming it would be something like Batman the Animated Series. Why? Why would I ever think that? What? After a few F-bombs and seeing the Joker use someone's skinned face as a puppet, we knew we were in for something else.
I'm so sad. Where's my body?
Puddin', what the fuck are you doing?
And it definitely didn't stop there, because we finished both seasons in 24 hours. Basically, it follows Harley's misadventures after she finally breaks up with the Joker for good, and she tries to prove her legitimacy as a supervillain instead of only being known as the Joker's sidekick. Poison Ivy is her best friend and eventual love interest. Whoops, spoilers. Whatever. It's canon, and yeah, more spoilers ahead. Harley assembles a new crew with Dr. Psycho, King Shark, Clayface, and Cyborgman, and meanwhile the Joker is going crazy. Well, crazier than usual. That Harley's able to be a successful supervillain without him. Comic book universes are kind of like Shakespeare. Stay with me now. We've seen so many different versions of the same stories and characters reinterpreted again and again and again by each generation. We can almost chart the progress of cultural attitudes by looking at how these interpretations change over time. So chill the fuck out, theater kids. I know what I'm talking about. I also think Anonymous and Shakespeare in Love are shitty movies. There. Now we have common ground. The world keeps on a-turnin'. Let's move on. Obviously, these interpretations can't be too off the mark. We still need to recognize that Hamlet is Hamlet. But the Harley Quinn series puts a smart, fresh, progressive take on the tragicomedy that is Dr. Harleen Quinzel.
All I wanted was what every Jewish mother wants. For you to marry a doctor.
But I am a doctor!
We've never seen Harley or Ivy or King Shark or any of these characters quite like this, and yet they feel more familiar and more relevant than ever.
Oh, what? Because I'm an alien, I understand all alien languages? Okay, I know a little parademon, but it's still a racist assumption. Be better.
The show retains the original spirit of the characters, but they're now reflections of people we've all met. We all know the Joker is an abusive dickhead to Harley, but now he's the kind of abusive dickhead we might have seen a friend go out with. But he's still 1000% the Joker we know.
Women aren't funny. My motives are never clear. I'm an agent of chaos. That's what you love about me.
Not anymore. We're through.
Oh, yeah, this again?
Dr. Psycho is Wonder Woman's main nemesis. Here, he gets kicked out of the Legion of Doom for calling her a cunt, and then constantly claims to not be a misogynist.
That really hurt, you hate women, I cherish them. No. Before you open your female trap, no way in hell I'm working for you.
Clayface, who's a shapeshifter, is a method actor who's always eager to exercise his talents.
I don't have no problem because I am actually...
That's not a weapon.
Fine, but when I act someone to death, I am a perfectly delicious substitute. What the hell are you talking about? He's still alive.
Huh? Oh, I was rehearsing. I have an audition for a margarine commercial.
Poison Ivy isn't just a femme fatale. Here she's an introverted tree-hugging woman who unexpectedly falls for Kite Man.
It was a 66. I did a little flipperoo on that second numero 6 to make it real nice.
This was a mistake.
Who at first comes off as some mediocre fuckboy, but is later proven to be honest and loving.
What was that? Whoa. Did I just hear the wind say Kite Man?
Fun fact, his catchphrase, "hell yeah," is actually canon.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
And Cy Borgman is a lovable old landlord who reminds me of a dick version of my Jewish grandpa.
Another suicide cult. If word gets out, I'll never be able to rent this verkackte apartment.
So let's make sure it doesn't.
Some of the more liberal interpretations, as well as some of my personal favorites, involve showing the softer side of the more hulking, intimidating villains like King Shark and Bane. King Shark is a big, lovable dude in a sweater, and went from saying lines like, "King Shark is a shark," to lines like,
Oh my God, it's Beyonce!
Oh, no problem. It allowed me to experience firsthand the failings of the prison industrial complex.
Your lease says no pets.
Him!
Well, that's racist. Or at the very least, xenophobic.
Bane frequently loses his temper, but it's usually in more mundane situations, and his feelings are easily hurt when the other villains treat him as a lowly goon.
I got a Razzie Zazzy for Bang.
It's Bane! You know it's Bane! I'm here every day, Todd. Is your card the 3 of Hearts?
No.
Fuck. I wish they would make another Up movie.
Whatever amount of work James Adomian is getting right now is not enough. And some characters are just plain goddamn fun, like Frank.
You know who I see? Frank. I'm ready to fuck some shit up.
You're in a pot, Frank. I'd have to carry you.
So what? I carry you emotionally.
We stand Little Shop of Horrors references, as well as JB Smoove. Thanks to the above, the show is relatable on a level unlike most other comic book adaptations. All the villain shenanigans that happen aren't secondary to the plot, but they do occur as a result of a character-driven script that focuses mainly on development and relationships. Even though it takes full advantage of its cartoon possibilities, much of the humor and plot points are found in the more mundane aspects of the characters' lives. Superhuman or not, they're still humanized, and they all still live in a 2021 society.
Hey, does anyone know our damn Wi-Fi password?
Harley is also chock full of millennial nostalgia and modern references similar to other adult animations like BoJack Horseman and Big Mouth. The show and the characters are self-aware, but with the exception of the nerd scene earlier, it never tries to be meta or know that they're in a TV show. Let's put a pin in that. Over the past 5 years or so, I've noticed a trend in superhero movies that I like to call Deadpoolification. Now, I am a huge Deadpool fan. I think both movies were extremely well done, and Deadpool does a fantastic job at playing Ryan Reynolds. The first film especially had such a great blend of action and comedy, and the meta and referential humor actually stayed true to the original comics. It also set a new precedent for others of its kind. R-rated superhero movies were a big no-no until this one made a shitload of money, and thanks to the millions of new fans, Deadpool became ingrained in pop culture like never before. Since then, a lot of comic book movies and shows have tried to capture the action comedy magic that Deadpool had. Sometimes it worked, other times, it's cringe.
Not me, shorty. I'm beautiful.
I haven't seen every superhero movie in the last 5 years, and I'm not going to act as if I did. So I guess the best examples of this that I can talk about easily are the first and second versions of the Suicide Squad. The new Suicide Squad had style, substance, and humor. They basically let James Gunn do whatever he wanted, and the decision paid off. And hopefully it sets a precedent for producers finally letting directors do what they do best, rather than vice gripping them by the balls at all times. But the humor didn't feel forced, the jokes worked, and the extremely talented cast was allowed to just have fun with it. Now, let's talk about this mess for a second. And I promise it'll only be for a second.
What, we some kind of Suicide Squad?
Okay, maybe more like a few seconds. The first Suicide Squad was slated to come out in March of 2016, about a month after Deadpool came out to rave reviews and lots of cash. But it was delayed a few more months because, get ready for it, they wanted to make it funnier.
You might want to work on your team motivation thing. You heard of Phil Jackson? Yeah. He's like the gold standard, okay? Triangle, bitch.
Considering how weak the film was in the first place, the decision just reeked of Hollywood executives trying desperately to relate to today's youth.
How do you do, fellow kids?
And it didn't pay off. Anyway, back to our original scheduled programming. There's a difference between being self-aware and being meta. Self-aware humor allows the characters to poke fun at themselves and the situations that they're in. In this context, the often absurd and fantastical occurrences in the comic book universe.
Wait a minute. Did anyone hear a splash? I've fallen in acid enough times to know that there should be a splash.
Meta humor usually just refers to the characters knowing they're in a movie, show, or book and making fun of that, with occasional fourth wall breaks. Know what I mean, Charlie Sheen? Meta humor can be great, and in Deadpool it's actually canon, but when it's overdone or forced, it can feel cheap and lazy. Harley Quinn's humor is self-aware, but it doesn't resort to shortcuts where the humor is derived from the characters knowing they're in the show or whatever.
How much of this am I hallucinating? Just me. Weirdly, the passed out guy with the boner and the plant driving the car are both real.
But what might be my favorite aspect of the show is just how gay it is. Like, really gay. I feel like every year or so, something will show up on Twitter announcing the new queerness of a superhero or villain that we were already familiar with. But they rarely go further than saying, like, oh, Green Lantern is officially gay now, or Catwoman is officially bi, or whatever. Listen, I'm all for inclusivity, and the more gay heroes and villains we have, the better. Personally, I think it's time we had our first effeminate superhero. Not like Neil Patrick Harris gay, not a drag queen, I mean like Buddy Cole gay. I want to see a guy like him absolutely destroy people without even breaking a nail. That'd be dope. There's this strange dynamic between Commissioner Gordon, the Joker, and Batman that I can't quite put a finger on. Or in. Obviously, the Joker isn't actually gay for Batman, but without Batman, he has no purpose, as demonstrated in the first episode. But when Harley realizes this, her inner dialogue sounds almost as if the relationship was romantic.
It was him all along, wasn't it? It's always been him. Joker never loved me. He only loves Batman.
Gordon is another favorite character of mine who's constantly trying to impress Batman almost to a desperate extent, and gets flustered around him as if he had a schoolgirl crush.
On and off, and on and off. Everything lives and everything dies. Jim.
I wasn't playing with it.
But the Joker's and Gordon's relationships with Batman aren't literally gay, but it also doesn't feel like queer coding. Listen, I got drunk last week, and I tried explaining this to my friend who did not understand what I was saying, so my only conclusion here is that they are all gay. But they're not. That's all I can say. But let's get to the main event here, the moment you all came here to see, with my clickbaity thumbnail. Harley and Ivy's romantic relationship actually goes pretty far back. It's been heavily implied since the cartoons in the 90s that Harley and Ivy were more than just gal pals. And finally, in the past decade, the coded queerness has finally become fully realized queerness. They have an explicitly sexual and romantic relationship in the comics. In fact, just recently, in the Injustice 2 comics and video game, the two actually get married. Seeing it finally happen in Season 2 of the Harley Quinn show was satisfying, but what made it really work was how the relationship developed over the course of the series. It's never outright stated that Harley and Ivy are actually queer, they're just two best friends who gradually fall in love with each other. Their growing feelings are a slow season-and-a-half long burn, and they develop realistically and organically. Ivy attempts to deny it due to her engagement with Kite Man, who ultimately makes the decision for her when he realizes she doesn't love him.
Hell no.
What? Don't you want to marry me?
Of course I do, but you don't.
Poor Kite Man. He deserves to find happiness someday. Ivy and Harley finally admit their feelings, they share a kiss as they escape the cops together, and I'm just over here, swooning. The show's producers intentionally hired more LGBTQ writers because of the direction the show was taking, and the decision paid off. Harley garnered a nomination for Outstanding Comedy Series from the GLAAD Media Awards, and the representation has been praised by critics and audiences alike. Season 3 of Harley Quinn is slated to come out at the end of 2021, and get ready for this, fellow gays. They've hinted at a musical episode. If you've never seen the show and you have HBO Max, please immediately close this tab and go and watch it, but of course, not before dick slapping those like and subscribe buttons as hard as you can. Keep it real, nerds and squares, clown princes and queens, and until next time,